Hello and welcome to a special edition of Extra Time with the Sports Broker, and we're pleased to be joined by our head coach, Carlos CORBERÁN, and the Examiner's football writer, Stephen Chicken. Carlos, how are you?
Fine, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today, and you as well, Stephen, for taking the time out to speak to us. Carlos, we've had a couple of days off at the start of the international break. Did you manage to have some downtime and spend some time with your wife?
Yes, I think it was necessary to rest a little bit after the games that we were playing in a row. But just a couple of days watching sometimes different teams, spending some time watching the Premier League, because it's something that when you are playing in a row, you are more focused, of course, in the Championship than in the Premier League, watching some games of the Champions League that I couldn't watch neither of previous one. Then it's like using that time to trying to rest a little bit, but continue analyzing a football team that can help you to inspire you, to give you different behavior, different possibilities, to analyze how football continue growing, how football is developing. So it's always too positive time, especially for me when you arrive to this international break with a positive dynamic of results.
Yeah, we'll come back on to football, but is there anything away from the game that you like to do when you've got the odd day off? Because days off don't happen often. Are you a golfer? Do you watch television? Go to the films? How do you settle down and sort of relax?
I think I am very simple. I like a lot of football and I like to be with my wife. So because here, my only part of my family is my wife. So I only have here, I live with her. So that's all. It's like I just at home, calm. Maybe we go to to walk a little bit, to go for a walk, and just be spending some time with the computer, watching football. These are the two things that I like more to do.
Does she watch the games with you, or do you have a little office at home that you'll watch the games in, and then you'll settle down in the evening and do something else?
I think my wife now, in the last time, he knows football, I think, better than me. So that I like to talk because she always follow the games. She's with me. She always is watching Huddersfield games.
Yeah,
she likes to talk with me about what she was watching in the game, but I like because I trust a lot in her opinion, because it's someone very sensitive about not only the football things, about another thing that for me are very important in football too.
Oh, that's good. So does she sort of help you go through the games afterwards, and you have a bit of a talk about a Huddersfield game after we've played them with your wife?
You know that sometimes the coaches, we need someone to talk, someone to show our feelings, to share our feelings, more than to give us information back. It's important to have people that can listen to you and can support you in some type of moments. More than to give me feedback, is just to help me a lot to listen to me. That is something that cannot be easy or be listened to me all the time, because when you are football coach, always you are thinking in your team, and is one word that you need to decide when you need to stop, because sometimes if you don't decide when to stop to work, you can extend the work until you want. Like, it's one job that you could be thinking a lot in your team, in the process that you need to fix, in the solution that you are thinking. So I think she has a lot of patience with me, and she understands a lot how demanding is my job, and just with this support for me is more than enough.
Oh, that's good to hear. I don't know about you, Stephen, but I think if I went home and tried to speak about football with my wife, it'd last about 30 seconds.
Yeah, probably if I went home and tried to speak about football to your wife as well, that wouldn't go so well. But no, yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. Like, even if sort of your partner isn't necessarily sort of like completely plugged in and switched on to what you're doing for work, you do need that support. Like, that's the whole point of the relationships, isn't it? Is, you know, you're looking after each other. And I think it's almost nice sometimes to have someone who is sort of detached from it to bounce things off, and have that bit of perspective, because you do get sort of stuck in your own head sometimes, don't you?
Yes.
When you
something difficult as a coach is to don't be watching the big picture, because at the end in football you cannot be watching we know that the environment that is football is so demanding, and in 3 days, in 1 week, you can move to be nominated the manager of the month, to be to accumulate 2 defeats in a row and to be suffering yourself a lot. So in football, it's difficult to be watching the big picture, but we need to have some time and some people that remind you that, okay, Cam, everything is working well. Be patient. Don't be too criticized with yourself just because one game, because it's a very demanding job where we want to always to win the games. It's true. When we go to one game, we always push ourselves to win that game. When we go to one game, we always push ourselves to make the best, to achieve the best performance of the team. And when you don't achieve these things, sometimes you are so frustrated by this type of situation. And when you accumulate a couple of games when the things are not working how you want to work, you can be yourself in one dynamic of self-pressure, self-demanding, that is important to manage too.
Do you find it hard, Carlos, to switch off from your day job? So when you go home, is it hard for you to leave being the head coach of Huddersfield Town at the training ground when you get home?
Something that I like is to spend a lot of hours here in the training ground to make this difference. Then I don't like to go home with work to do. I like to go to my house when I have finished the journey. So I don't care a lot about how many hours I spend in the training ground, but I'm trying to take care a lot that when I go home is because the job is done, or the most important part of the key part of the job is done. So even if I arrive at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or any time that I decide that I will arrive home, so it's because the job is done and I have spent enough time here to prepare everything that for me is important.
When you mentioned you're watching the Champions League and the international games to have a look at what they're doing, is there anything specifically that you do get inspired by in what the team's doing? Is it tactically, the shapes they're doing, or is there something with individual players that you think that's something I could apply to what we're doing at Huddersfield?
I think a little bit of everything. I like to be following the players that I was working with them. I like to see how they are working. I like to see, for example, our long players too, to see how they are working. The other day in the international break, I spent some time watching Chris Lowe, how he was playing, watching Emon Green, how he was playing, so watching Phillips, so Matty Daly, the player that we did the launch this year. So I like to be watching something different that I usually don't prioritize in the dynamic of the work. Even if I receive reports, because I like to receive information from these players, I don't spend many time watching the videos. And for example, in this international break, I can be using to watch some of our players. And after, always you have teams that you like to follow. I like to see Manchester City, how he's playing, with new behaviors Pep is doing with the team. I like to see, especially when you have one game, like for example, was the game Liverpool-Manchester City, was an interesting game to watch. Or the game of Chelsea-Manchester City was another one. Or PSG-Manchester City in the Champions League was another interesting game to follow. And after, there are some coaches that for me are doing things that can show you, can inspire you. Like for example, can be Bayern de Munich with the new coach, can be Shakhtar Donetsk with the new coach. Always I like to see this type of coaches that I know that they are always thinking in how to introduce offensive behaviors. I am someone that I love the part in football, everything is important, but I love the attack, because I think in attack, in defense, in attack, but I am someone with a lot of very sensible for the attacking point of view for the teams to see how football develop, because for me, the attacking part is something that can continue growing and you can find new relations, adaptation of the shapes. For me, in defense, the things are more stable in terms of you can be one team with one shape, how they press, the different shapes, you can analyze this. But after an attack, you can be watching teams that is impossible to recognize the shape, because they just to move players and change the structures to attack a lot. And always you can have some idea. For example, what is doing now Shakhtar Donetsk is something that I didn't see enough, or I didn't see a lot from another teams to do. They play with the fullbacks inside, but no, Pep was doing this, but not to create one free player more in the middle, just to find directly the free player that is going to appear in the game. So this type of behavior sometimes give you an idea that with your ideas, you are going to grow in behaviors that you think that can help the team to attack. And right now in this part of the season, I always am thinking how I can improve the team in attack without lose the improvement of the team in defense. because this is something that is not easy, because sometimes you want to improve one part, but the fact that you are improving one part, you are making worse than another part. Can be going in both parts. The fact that you try to improve the pressing, maybe you are going to be less solid. If you want to be more solid, you are going to be less press or less aggressive team.
Yes.
If you want to attack better, maybe you are going to defend worse. If you are going to defend more, maybe you are going to attack worse. So at the end, you need to be looking for a good balance and try to make improvements without have the negative consequence in the other part of the football game. So I am thinking a lot how to improve the attack of the team without has a negative consequence from the defensive point of view. And the same, be watching how we can be more aggressive team without lose any option to be a solid team. That is one of the targets that I had this year too.
Yeah. Stephen, that's interesting that Carlos brings that up as being a target, because obviously Town have been a lot more productive going forward. We've scored 3 a few times this season, 4 once against Reading, and the defence has been far more solid. So is that, listening to the head coach talk on that, is that something you can actually see in how Town are playing?
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's always a work in progress, and there's been other games where you're not seeing it, but on the whole, when you look at sort of the underlying data and compare it with last season, it's a lot better. I think that sometimes, and I would put my hands up to this as well, sometimes we can be a bit reactive to sort of what's happened in the last game and say like, oh, well, you know, where's the progress? And you sort of lose sight of, well, one thing, it doesn't all come at once. For another thing, it's never a straight line up. It's always sort of, you know, up and down, up and down. But I think you also have to remember that you know, Town for a few years now have not been brilliant in attack. That has been sort of the thing that they've struggled on a lot. Going back to probably the second half of the first Premier League season, and that gives you sort of a starting point you have to build up from, let alone changing the personnel on top of that as well. You know, the squad now from then is completely different other than Jonathan Hogg. So you're constantly sort of fighting that sort of uphill battle. And you've got a lot of, in attack as well, you've got, you know, a lot of young players are sort of responsible for driving the attack. So, you know, Josh Caroma, Sorba Thomas, Lewis O'Brien, they're all sort of 21, 22. They're all still learning to operate in that final third, which, you know, must bring its own challenges compared to having, you know, 3 27-year-olds who are top of the game and, you know, 200 appearances in the championship.
Yeah. Carlos, on that sort of a point, working with younger players is obviously something that you've done a lot in your career, and developing them is something that's important to you and you've spoken about previously. The first time I met you when I joined the club was when you were watching the B team here at Canalside as well, and that's something you make a real point to do. Was that one of the appeals of coming to Huddersfield and taking this job, was to build an identity that went across the entire football club right through the academy into the first team? Because it's something you highlighted to me when Lewis O'Brien signed his new contract, is for you, the ideal is we have players that are created by Huddersfield Town and become first team players.
I think this is one of the motivation that we have, because I know how important the academy is and how important this academy, because it's been very important, and how important even is going to be. So even more, because I think in this club, the academy has a lot of importance, and it is something that I understand that is very positive. But there is one process in the back to make the young players be available to can help the first team. I think in the last, there was a little bit of football talkings in the last weeks, because after Barcelona, after Koeman was introducing young players, the people was talking if would be a positive to have players, introduce young players in the first team, or is more important to make them ready to play in the first team. I believe more in the second part. Sometimes the club have needs that you need to cover, and the opportunity for the young players are going to arrive. I think it's very important to prepare the young players to compete in the high level of football. It's very important to prepare them. Of course, we want to play with young players. I think when you have one player from your club that you have developed with the identity of the club, and you are watching the first team, is one success for the club. That is very nice, and especially for me in England, for the fans, they appreciate a lot when one academy player arrives to the first team, and the people support a lot this, and it's something that not in all the countries happen. In many of the countries, the people have more expectation in the foreigner players than in the players from the clubs. And here in England, for me, I admire this support that the clubs has and the expectation that they have in the academy players, in the club players, because for me, it's part of the football British culture, and it's one of the strengths that for me has. So we always try to develop, but the idea is be focusing this in the development of the young players. It be focusing what they are going to need to be first team players one day. And when they are in the first team, continue to develop them. I think football is something, football, we are talking about one world when you never stop to grow. Never, never. As soon as you stop to grow, you start to have less level to face, less level to continue to be part of football. Football is one of these parts of the life where the growing is continue, and when you need to be adapted to the different problems, different situations that the teams create, and for the players it's exactly the same. In all the career of the players, I am happy a lot because here I enjoy working with the young players because they are very humble players to work with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am enjoying a lot of my time here in Huddersfield because the player with a lot of experience, like can be Hawk, that is the only player that now we are working with that was in the Premier League when this club was in the Premier League, is someone that continue having the skill to be improving. Is that someone that when you analyze with him the game, because I like to analyze with the individual, the players, the performances, always try to see things that he can do better. Even sometimes you are giving the feedback and he's giving to you even more criticized feedback about which possibilities he could do. But I can tell you about Hogg, I can tell you about Campbell, I can tell you about players with experience, or at least someone with a lot of experience in the championship, that they are thinking a lot how continue growing. And this mentality, I like a lot to have players with this type of mentality, because this is really what football demands. Players that always are with open minds to continue growing and find in the growing or in the learning one part of their motivation to keep living the dream of the football. So I like a lot to be working with young players that are going to grow and with players with more experience that they continue want to improve as a players.
Yeah, you're a young coach yourself, Carlos, especially in football management. They tend to be older, but that's changing in recent years. Football managers and head coaches are getting a bit younger now. But how you deal with younger players and more senior players, is that still something that the personality side of it maybe, is that still something that you're learning about and getting better at managing individuals rather than the tactical side of it and putting a team together on paper, as we say? That interaction side of it, is that something that you're sort of developing and changing the way you speak to younger players compared to our more senior professionals?
Being honest, first of all, I started to coach when I was 18 years old. When I was close to 18 years old, I started to coach. And one of the reasons why I stopped football was because I was not enough good to arrive to the highest level as a keeper, it's true. But another of the reasons that I wanted to be coach. I had the determination. I was feeling that I wanted to coach because I was enjoying more coaching the team than playing the games. Then I didn't stop to coach. Maybe in total, I don't know if during some of the teams that I was working, maybe 1 year or 1 year and a half. But if not, I was this is more than 18 years now, coaching football teams with different roles. So I being honest, I have it's true that I am still young coach, but it's true that I have relation with the football during many years of my life.
Yeah.
And especially I have the option to be in a professional level, something that is very, very interesting for me. It was very interesting for my growing as a coach. That is something that I don't want to stop never. Then I think if you don't have the skill to manage experienced players, you cannot be in that job. And I have to tell you too that sometimes I have never find any type of problems with players with experience. Like when one player arrives to one level with experience, means that they have a lot of positive things to be in that level and they know how to be in that level. So sometimes with some young player that doesn't have the background, doesn't have developed the mentality, maybe you can you have to manage. You need to be maybe more strict, or you need to give him more advices or more corrections to put his mind ready. But usually with the experience that have years in football, they know very well how to control themselves. They know very well the habits that they need to have. They have enough experience to have a true and honest conversation with them. So I never have find any type of problem with these players. After, everyone have different personalities. Some of the players, you know, that they are more sensitive players, and you need to be careful with the message that you, with the feedback that you give to them, to never make them be frustrated or to lose confidence. And other players is total opposite. You need to give sometimes negative stimulation to them make feel more angry and to find out reactions. But I remember something that I was listening one Guardiola press conference, that he was saying that at the end, the top player, you never need to push a lot themselves. Like the best players, always they are self-demanding, and they are showing their characters, and they are showing very positive habits. And that's why they are top players, because you know they couldn't be top players. So
yeah,
everyone is different. Everyone is not about more about the age. It's more about the personality. And it's important to know the personality of our players to make our message arrive in the best way. But at the same time, the players need to be adapted to our personality too, and be adapted to our leadership skills or leadership habits that we have, and our type of communication. I like, for example, to be really honest with the players. When I think something, I say to the player, because I don't like to say something to him and to be thinking something different. Everything that I think, I like to communicate to the player, because my target with all of my players, is to achieve the best level that they can achieve. So this is my dream. My dream is to put every player that I am working in the best level that I can work, and I can put them. So like, this is my dream. I think my dream is the same dream that they have to have. Try to be the best player that they can be. So like, both are working in the same direction. I don't understand any type of problem, because both parts want exactly the same. We want to be the best. I want to be there in the best level that they can compete, and I think that they want exactly the same. After, as a collective, I need to always to protect the team and to make the decision about the team, what is the best for the team. And sometimes what I understand that is the best for the team, for some players cannot be the best. So this is something that is important, just to manage this, when the individual expectations are different of the collective expectation or the collective's needs of the moment. And this is something that always you try to manage well, to make them understand the different moments of one team or the needs of the team, because the team has one value that is over the value for each player. And it's important that every player need to be watching that the most important thing here is the team, and to help the team, they need to put their level in the best level that they can put.
Do you think that shared mentality then of wanting to be the best possible versions of themselves and sharing that dream you speak of is something we have in the current group? Because with the current first team group, every time they've spoken and any time they're asked, they always speak about the togetherness and the team spirit that they have. Is that something that's really pleasing to see as the head coach, and something that helps you do your job and helps you get your ideas across, the fact that they're all turning up to the training ground, willing to work every day?
I think football is a collective sport, so as soon as it's collective, there is something that the team has to be important, and they need to work for the team, and means that they need to work for their teammates. So that's why I understand that togetherness is something very important. Togetherness means be ready to give the best for your team and be ready to always help your team. So this is for me the mentality that every football player need to have, because we are talking about team mentality. So, but inside of this team mentality, the way that you can help your team is to be thinking in yourself to put your level in the highest level that you can, and be your better conditions to can help your team. So this is how we should understand. But it's true that now we are talking about this, but the last year I analyzed the first lap of the last year, and I was watching individual behaviors that I was enjoying a lot. I was watching many players running a lot for the teammates. So I think all my time here in Huddersfield, I was watching this type of mentality in the players. But it's true that every time we still are focused to bring players and to grow our players with this type of mentalities. Because for me, in the football, there are three aspects that are key. And the fourth one can be this mentality. The first aspect for me is the foot, because you cannot be a football player if you don't manage well your foot. If you don't have skills in your foot to pass the ball, football, we don't play with the hands, we play with the foot. So it's important to manage the ball with this part of the body. The second part for me is the brain. You can have a lot of technique, but if you understand the game, you are not going to be able to produce the level of your technique to put in the game situations. The third part for me, but not for important, the three parts are the same important, are the legs. Because if you have quality and intelligence, but you only can do one attack and after you cannot defense, you only can defense and after you don't have the skill, the legs that can allow you to cover a space, in football is more difficult to play.
Yeah.
And the fourth part for me is like the magic one, the special one, is this type of personality and character that are going to make someone give a lot of value for the team, because his mentality, because his values, because his answer always to the situation, because when he's not playing, he always is helping in the teammates. So this type of, for me, that one will be the fourth one. It's like the extra value that can make a lot of differences. But it's true that I cannot tell you that any of the previous three aspects are not enough important. For me, the quality in the pass is necessary to have in football. The legs to can defense, to can attack, to can use spaces is necessary. The brain to the understanding of the game, because if you only run back without any type of meaning, you are not going to have any type of impact. And after the fourth one is to have one character that give value to the team where you are playing.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear, Carlos. That mentality and that way of sort of applying yourself, Stephen, is that something that you can see on the pitch and the way that Town play under Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's every opposition manager talked about the level of fitness and the hard work that Town put in and the physical values. You know, I think everyone would say that at the very least, Town will give you a tough run out. And I think you can't really have that without, without having that mentality and without having that group of players that are driving each other on to go that extra 10 yards, even when your bodies are sort of screaming no in the final 5 minutes of a game. And Sheffield United's a great example, I think, and where you look at that and you can see that goal late on and they still come back and get the win. And there's been a few times this season where you've had disappointing results like the Fulham game and then you come back and win 3 in a row. So I think that is something that has been, after Town came down from the Premier League, people talked a lot about sort of that hangover and that sort of just how low the players were. And you can see the sort of year on year, it's been sort of going, generally speaking, has been going up and up. And players always talk about the spirit in the camp, and you always take it with a pinch of salt, because it's almost sort of the default thing you say in a press conference when you don't know what to say. But you get the sense with this group of players that they actually really do mean it. And from talking to other people around the club as well, that vibe definitely comes across. And that is something that no great team is a great team without that, really. So it's very encouraging to see.
Carlos,
No, I think football, like I told you, football is something collective. So if you understand football, if you just want that everyone play for you, and you understand football in that way, you cannot never help. You cannot be part of one team. So our group of players, I don't think we have any type of player that can be thinking on this. So we have to work for one collective target that we have. That's why for me it's important to have this mentality, this type of mentality players. Here we don't have any star. Our key point is the team, and everyone need to be following and to try to add all the best to make the team better. So sometimes when you are in another level and you bring one player, that you bring someone like as a star, or someone that you may feel that he need to come here to one team to win your games, sometimes you can start to create this in the mind of some players, and these things can a little bit to destroy the collective dynamic of one team. But I think with this group of players, from my area here, I have to tell you that is not a complicated dressing room, because I have a lot of players, I am watching a lot of players that they are self-demanding, they are enough humble to know what is their strength, what is their weaknesses, and be very concentrated to always improve. So my time here with the players that I was working so far is have been one time when I was enjoying with them more than suffering with them, because they are players that they have a very positive mentality to work.
I think that's interesting to hear. Sorry, Stephen.
I think you can see it in the players that have sort of come through as well. Like we noticed even last season when he was only playing off the bench, we noticed that Sorba Thomas in the warm-up was always talking to people and talking to coaches, talking to senior players, watching carefully during games as well. And you could see that he was just trying to learn. And Scott High as well, similar kind of thing. You know, he's just, you can tell from talking to him that he's just got that model professional kind of mentality to him. And I think it's kind of instructive that those are the players that have come through over the past sort of 9 months, and that they're also both players who, when we've spoken to them, we spoke to Scott High after Luton, and he was just, you could tell he was just delighted to be a professional footballer and was just loving being a professional footballer. And Sorba very much the same thing. So I think that having those players come through is sort of, hopefully, is sort of typical of the mentality in the group and the that mentality for self-improvement you talked about, Carlos.
Yes, of course, when the player is young and didn't have this experience, it's more easy to don't have developed one level of ego that can destroy for me the player. The key is how we manage the ego, but not only the players, everyone. Because here in this job, you don't have to have. You need to have confidence in yourself, but you need to, like I told you, to be demanding with yourself too. But that's why you need to stop the ego, not stop the confidence because it's necessary, because as soon as you lose 2 games, or as soon as you are a striker and you don't score in 2 games the goal, as soon as you are keeper and you are receiving goals and you have one mistake, of course you are going to be in the point of everyone, no, in the middle of the eyes of everyone, and you need to have this confidence to revert these type of moments. But at the same time, if your ego just protect yourself and doesn't allow you to help your growing, your learning process, then is when it's negative. So it's true that when the player is young, didn't have developed one level of ego. The challenge with Sorba, for example, was how is Sorba? Is the same Sorba now than when he was the player of the month that before to be the player of the month, or is different? And Sorba is exactly the same one, and we will be working to be exactly the same one, because sometimes when the players or the people achieve something, they start to forget about the reason that allowed them to achieve something. As soon as you achieve something and you think that now you are there and you forget of the things that allow you to grow, you are going to go directly down. So that's why our ego doesn't ever have to stop to be enough awareness of what things we need to do to continue growing and to continue getting our targets.
Carlos, I have a couple of quick questions to ask you before you go, and I won't keep you much longer. But you touched on a short playing career. You retired at 23 as a goalkeeper, and then you became a coach.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other coaches who have a goalkeeping background. Nuno Espirito Santo at Tottenham was a goalkeeper, Julian Lopetegui as well. But there aren't many that start as a goalkeeper and become a coach. Is that, and especially with your sort of focus on attack, where did that sort of love for coaching come from? Was there an inspiration when you were a child or a young coach that wanted to make you make that change?
I think always our backgrounds help us to develop some of our skills. I say that I remember in one of the press conferences, it's true that when I started to be coach, Benitez in that moment in Spain, was one of the important Spanish coaches, and he was working in Valencia, in Man City. So I was watching him, and he was someone that is true that was more defensive than offensive. He was creating something important from the defensive point of view for me more than from an attacking point of view. And maybe at that moment of my life, I started to be coach, very focused in the defense of the 4, in the 4-4-2 in defense and things like this type of behaviors. But after, when I start to work in the professional football level, I did in Villarreal. In Villarreal is one club where I was working there close to 6 years. And at that moment, Villarreal was one different club. They were working in the first team with Pellegrini, was one coach that is very attacking coach. They were playing 4-4-2 without wingers, like a 4-2-2-2 with 2 playmakers instead of wingers when they were everyone attacking, and you were watching one level of football that when I started to work in the second team of Villarreal, we try to develop in all the young players, looking for one specific profile of player to can do these ideas that the club has. We're looking for wingers with 1-versus-1 and making cross. We were looking for wingers, for example, that were more playmakers to drop and to lead the action and to appear in any space of the pitch. So first, there is one part that I was working close to 6 years there with this type of mentality, with this type of profile of players. I remember to be working with Santi Cazorla, with Giuseppe Rossi, with Ibagaza. Ibagaza is one player that, I don't know, or Robert Pires, players that...
Was Juan Roman Riquelme there at all at the time?
Yeah, was in the first team, but I wasn't working with him, but he was in the first team at that moment. So were players that were very special and magic players with the ball. They have a skill that were not normal to manage the ball, to have calm where they were close to the opponent box when everyone is so nervous to finish the action, and they were giving the pause of the game when they were in offensive box. So of course you learn a lot of things from these type of players. At the same time was the moment where Spain started to win the Euro Cup, and after the World Cup playing one different level of football that they never saw before. So I remember with Luis Aragonés, the first Euro Cup that Spain won was switching a lot. They put another different profile of players. They were playing with false number 9, and they were making, they were winning the games, controlling the ball a lot. So you are in Villarreal, you are watching the national team, and arrive Guardiola to Spain to start to coach Barcelona, and start to make you feel that everything that was playing against Barcelona, before you play the game, you knew that Barcelona will win the game. And what they were doing, and start to have this control of the opponent that I never saw in my life. Then how they were doing, taking the control of the ball. There is only one ball, and they took the ball from the beginning until the end, and they were making everything that they wanted with the opponent. So if you have open mind, you are watching. If you have the ball, you have more options to control the games. There are other ways, but if you manage well the ball, there is only one ball. Then you are in this part of context when you are giving your first steps as a coach, and after. So this is going to have a lot of impact in you, the profile of player that you are working with, the Spanish national team, the philosophy of world identity of Villarreal, Barcelona with Guardiola, that for me changed the football, because I couldn't watch or enjoy enough the time, for example, of Cruyff that arrived to Spain and changed the football too. I remember that moment in England in Arsenal, in that moment, I don't know which year I am talking about, but with Ben, Arsenal was playing similar type of football, attacking a lot with many players. So it's true that I have this relation that I start to feel that I like to make this with my teams. And always when we start to coach, we like to make the same of the people that you admire, the things that you are watching the TV that you like. So this is always the first step. So I was having more close feeling with this type of football, because I was watching the success of this type of football. Mm-hmm. So it was not only because I like, it's because I was watching that if you were dominating the ball, dominating the opponent, you were dominating the games, and you had more options to win the games. So it was like a easy relation in my mind. Then after I finished in Villarreal, I had the opportunity to work in Saudi Arabia with one of the coaches that was very close to Pep Guardiola. So I wanted to continue growing in this level of offensive organization, to improve my football knowledge, to try to learn everything that I could learn, to develop one day in one team all these ideas. So always I have been related with this part. Then after Saudi Arabia, I was in Cyprus as a first experience. After I came to England, to Leeds, trying to develop this offensive mentality. And after I was working with Bielsa, someone that is totally different of every coach in the world, and is someone that has a different way to defense, to make the pressing. Then always you try to make a mix of ideas. But I have always the lucky to have been in Villarreal, because one special club, towards the success of the Spanish national team, and towards the success of, especially for me, Guardiola, after to be working with Bielsa, and all these things in one moment of the football that for me have grown a lot. I remember in my starting moments, it was very normal to see the keeper take the ball with the hand and kick the ball long. And it was very difficult to see goalkeeper that with the hand, they were playing so with the central backs. But now you are watching one Premier League game, and it's very difficult to see keeper that they are kicking the ball. You are watching keeper that usually they are playing short. So for me, in the last 10 years, the football has changed a lot. Because from Guardiola, because it's true that was one of the people that inspired other coaches.
Yeah.
He was working first in Spain, after he was working in Germany, after he was working in England. So he has been working in 3 countries where there are a lot of good coaches too. And good coaches, people that is to improve a lot. So they are using a lot of these new behaviors. So as soon as the football grow in attack, football has to grow in defense. Because it's not just the team that just attack well, they will win in the games. So as soon as someone is growing in attack, the opponents are growing in defense, and the level of football for me grow too. As soon as this level of defense start to beat the behaviors in attack, football need to grow again to beat these difficulties or to adapt to this. So I think we are watching in the last years one amazing growing in football, and now when you are watching games of the Premier League, of the Championship, of the Champions League, I think the quality of the football that the teams are doing is so high.
That's really interesting to hear. Before I let you go, just one less serious question to end. We usually end the show on a less serious note than what we usually do. And one topic of conversation among Huddersfield fans that tends to come up is your outfits on the touchline, Carlos, the things you wear on a match day, because usually in England it's a suit that the manager wears or a tracksuit, but you opt for more of a laid back. I've noticed a few pairs of New Balances which are nice, and a smarter trouser and a shirt or a jumper. Do you put much thought into the outfits you're wearing? Is there a superstition behind it, or is it just what you feel most comfortable in?
Exactly. I think you need to. It's true that our role, you need to show the respect for what football means, but it's true that if I will be with another clothes, I wouldn't feel comfortable. So I think inside of the respect, because I use this just for the training, but after I don't like to have the same clothes of the training in the game, because it's a different moment, it's a special moment for me. But it's true that I will wear with another type of clothes, I wouldn't feel comfortable enough to see myself with these clothes or to manage the game. So inside to the respect that we need to have, I like to be with clothes that allow me to develop my job. That this is for me what the fans want to watch, more than one coach with one clothes, one other clothes, be watching one team where they can be represented. And for me, our job is so demanding, because I always want that the coach, every Huddersfield fan be watching Huddersfield and be watching represented by what the team is doing. This is for me my key. That's why it's part of my frustration when I don't see this. And I know enough well when the things are working well and when the things are not working well. Like Steve was saying, I know that this is not the growing. I would like this. I always want to achieve this. And I know when the team was not competing well, when the team is not competing well. And this is always our challenge, to see how we can achieve this type of level where every Huddersfield town fan be very, very proud of the team and be enjoying with the team. Sometimes the things work how we want, sometimes no. When the thing doesn't work, I guarantee you that I can talk about myself. I suffer a lot to make the things work. And this is part why we enjoy less than we suffer, because we know that in the moment that the things are not working in the way that we want, I don't feel well, because I want that all the people that goes to the stadium, all the people that follow the club, that follow the team, be enjoying with the team. And we are the first one that we don't enjoy the things are not working well. So just use clothes that allow me to be comfortable to make this. And we only can say that I guarantee you, I think all the coach, but I can talk by me that never is a nice job to have when you are watching that the things could work better, and always the things can work better, always. But especially when the thing doesn't arrive to the minimum level that we want, we are the first one that we suffer. And the part of our challenge is there, part of our motivation is there, in the angry that we can feel, in the upset that we can feel when the things are not working well.
Well, luckily this season, Carlos, it's been working well more often than it hasn't. We've been playing really well, and I think a lot of town fans and everyone here at the club is very encouraged with the start to the season, and excited to see where we go after the international break. So I know we're in the middle of a tough day of international break training, so I'll let you go now. Thank you very much for your time, Carlos, and taking the time to speak to us. And you too, Stephen. And thank you to Sportsbroker for sponsoring the show. And we'll speak to you all before the next game against Hull City.